Hello. So finally we managed. So welcome, guys, and thanks for the patience. So today I'm gonna talk about basically continuous delivery of microservices to Kubernetes, and I'll show you why end-to-end also. You can see my website, my Twitter, so feel free to ping me. So what's Agile? Basically, first of all, I would like to know how many of you are working in Agile projects. So you can, hi. That's basically what I expected. Second question, how many of you are delivering on production software and deploying on production every day? So there is always the same guy, always one. So what's basically Agile? For me, if I just summarize Agile, is about a quick and continuous feedback loop, basically. Why? Because we have to delight our customers. We need to adapt fast to a rapidly changing market. And in my opinion, what does a project look like normally? This war. You can see people dead on the floor, gunfire, smoke. You can even see over here the Scrum Masters and product owners. They're all dead. Why? What I basically see are normally big bang releases. So the projects, normally I see deployments every 2-3 months. I see manual testing, lack of automation. So it's a lot of heroics every time, gunfire and smoke. And let's take also a step back. So we have also seen in the last few years massive changes. Why? We have seen the rise of the containers, so popularized by Docker mostly. We have seen also the rise of container orchestrators like Kubernetes, which allows us basically to deploy and manage containers at scale. It kind of turns us in Google ninjas, in my opinion. It's really awesome. I would really recommend it. But as usual, we have problems. Then what happens? We come up with solutions. And those solutions bring new problems. Why? Because basically there is a lot of complexity, a lot of part moving. The learning curve is pretty steep. So it's pretty complicated. And basically we need to find a way how to leverage the cloud to be able to be really agile, to be elastic and scalable. And we need some kind of tool. That's basically what we need. But we forgot about something important also. So delivering business value, because it's pretty awesome stuff, so playing with Kubernetes, but it's also tedious. So we need something, as I said, to help us basically in order to deliver business values and delight our customers. And that's what I want to introduce pretty shortly today. As a best effort, I'll try as much as I can. So Jenkins X, so as the founder says. And Jenkins X is basically a reimagined CI/CD for the cloud in order to be able to deliver microservices. Since we are at Java conference, probably Java microservices based on Spring Boot or Microprofile. I see also the Microprofile guys here. So basically, Jenkins X is kind of, for me, an ecosystem, at the moment based on Jenkins, which act as the glue and provides a lot of tools which actually enable us to deliver value pretty fast and continuously. Everything is inspired by this awesome book, which I really recommend to read, and it's based on the state of DevOps. And it's talking about building and scaling high-performing organizations. So you can really, I would recommend to read it. And Jenkins X is inspired heavily from this book. I will try also to show you a little bit in a nice live demo. So let's pray for the demo god and for the projector gods, for everything. So basically, I hope you can see. Otherwise, you just shout if I have to increase a little bit the size. So basically, here yesterday, since of course I would like to also to show the Kubernetes cluster installation live, but it takes like 10-15 minutes. So I already set up a cluster here on the Google Cloud Platform using the Jenkins X command line tool, which glues together everything. So basically here, it's important to see in the first column over here, we can see a bunch of tools. The most important ones probably are Jenkins itself at the really top. And also we can see Nexus as an artifact repository. And also we can see in the middle a Docker registry. So that's basically a lot of stuff we actually need for starting and deploying application fast to the cloud. I just had to use a command, jx create cluster. Now, once I have the cluster, basically I can interact with the cluster using the command line. I hope it's big enough for you guys. So, let's see. Not really. A little bit more. Cool. So, here we have the JX command line tool. If I want to open Jenkins, I just type JX console. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is stable. Wow, pretty cool. So here, what can we see? I have already a bunch of projects importing, and it's important to notice. So first of all, the 2 lines here at the bottom are 2 backup test projects, because as you have seen at the beginning, something can always happen in the demos. So I have a Spring application, a Go application, already deployed. First 2 rows here, they are pretty interesting, because basically Jenkins X is embracing the concept of GitOps. I don't know how many of you have heard about this stuff. So GitOps is a new concept, actually, and is trying to not only represent the code, so in a Git repository and the configuration and also all the infrastructure, but also the state of our environments. So normally we see, for example, some testing, staging, production environment. And normally those environments, they are just saved on a CI/CD tool, for example. So here the concept of GitOps is that everything has to be controlled through Git and pull requests. So it's pretty cool. So basically here, I will show that also later on GitHub, we have 2 pipelines which represent our staging and production environment. So every time we want to deploy something, we will trigger a pull request. I hope to be able to show that. And this is going to be deployed using the Helm Kubernetes package manager. So we can see exactly the same stuff from the command line tool. So I can just say JX get environments. And here, probably the resolution is not really the optimal, but I think it's enough to see that we have a staging environment, a production environment, which are represented by namespaces on Kubernetes. And we have two different promotion policies. Automatic for staging. In other words, every time we commit something into Git, basically the code is going to be built, tested, packaged as a Docker container, and deployed. For production, at the moment, the default is manual. If you are really advanced, you could use even automatic deployment on production. But you need, of course, really heavy testing, automatic testing in place. So here, I can even get the link to the GitHub repositories, which are on my public GitHub at the moment. So we can see at the end the representation of the environment as a Git repository. It has an associated Jenkins pipeline, and the environment is just represented as an Helm chart. So an Helm chart basically is just a bunch of Kubernetes manifests packaged into a format, and here all the applications deployed are represented here. We can see, for example, my testing backup applications. So version 001 has been deployed on the staging environment. Okay. So we can see also the pipelines from here. For example, JX get pipelines. I can see also the pipelines which are in Jenkins, and the path to the pipeline. I can see also the applications which are deployed at the moment. We can see, for example, my test applications deployed on staging with one replica. And now what actually I would like to do is I will try to create live a new microservice, and I'll deploy that live. So we are at the Java conference, so actually I should use some kind of Java framework, but it takes longer to build. If you can see, for example, on Jenkins here, the Spring application took me around, let's say, 9 minutes from my laptop to production, let's say. The Go application took 4 minutes something, so I'm gonna just create a super small Go microservice. So in order to create a microservice, you use the JX create command. And if you wanna create a Spring Boot application, you just say JX create Spring. And using the Spring initializer is gonna basically generate a basic application, generate also a Git repository to it, deploy the repository to GitHub, and some more, which basically we will see also now. Let's try now to create a Go microservice. So now it's asking me which organization do I want to use. I don't want to use my customer's organization, so let's use mine. For example, the Javantura rocks. So let's see. So at the moment, it created locally a Git repository. I want to use Go. Now, so actually, yeah, it's initializing now and pushing this repository to GitHub. What's important to see also here, so now we already created a small microservice in a few seconds. And what's important to see is here. So basically, not only we generate the code, but also we apply a draft pack. Draft, I think it's an open source project coming from Microsoft, and is basically detecting which kind of language we are using and generating a Jenkins file, for example, Docker file, Kubernetes manifest, according to the type of language in order to deploy that effectively to Kubernetes. So at the moment, for example, here, you can see some draft pack from GitHub, and I'm using the Go one. So now we should be actually already building. We can have a look at the logs either from the console, for example. I can say JX get the build logs, or I could even copy-paste the command from here. I want the build logs of the Javantura rocks. So you can get the build logs if you want. You can get, for example, the activity. So I can filter for the Javantura rocks with live. So here, a little bit of information, what's going on. So we could check out the source, for example. Now it's trying to build the code. And of course, we can always go to our Jenkins application. So here is building, as you can see. So the master is building. And basically, in a few minutes, we should have the microservice running on Kubernetes. So it's executing a couple of steps. And import, for example, it's really nice to see it. So here, we're using make to build the code. And here, we are using Scaffold, so another open source tool, in order to build a Docker container. And after that, it will be promoted to the staging environment. As I said, we are using GitOps. What does it mean? We trigger pull requests for deployments. Since we are deploying to staging, you can see a pull request has been automatically triggered here. And is trying basically, so it's actually, I don't know why this is still in German, but now it's trying to get basically a container inside Kubernetes in order to build my application. It's pretty cool because actually we don't have to wait anymore in the build queue. So we have an elastic pool of pods on Kubernetes which are able to build our code. So if we have enough power on Kubernetes, we could have 1,000 developers developing on the same cluster and building and deploying code. So you should never again wait for an agent on your CI server. That's at least the idea. And okay, so now while it's actually still deploying, so we can get again probably the activity, and I think there should be a link, exactly. So here, as I said, GitOps, it means a pull request. So here, as you can see, we are in the staging environment on GitHub, and we are deploying the Javantura rocks super crazy application, super really complicated application on the cloud. Okay, so now that's another functionality. Actually, I have a few minutes to show. So now I want to basically open a pull request and do some really simple changes. So I will use the awesome Visual Studio Code. Now, as you can see here, you see a bunch of files. So it's just a super simple Go application. Don't worry. I mean, we know Java is better, but we can deploy that fast. So I want to create a new branch with a new endpoint, for example, or at least I want to modify, let's say I want to modify the message. Let's call it from the master. So instead of saying, for example, Jenkins X, Golang, we say Jenkins X says hello to Croatia. I save. So just commit my stuff pretty fast. I will push my feature branch. Now, after pushing the feature branch, normally we open pull requests, right? So actually here, okay, I should see the feature branch on GitHub. So let's double check on my repository. So Javantura rocks. Okay, I have the branch on here. Now, there is also a cool plugin. In Visual Studio Code, we can open pull request from here. So I will create a pull request. And the pull request now is open and ready for review on GitHub. So the people can start fighting, because we know how pull requests are handled. So a lot of stuff, a lot of discussion going on about clean code practices and solid principles. And after we come to an agreement, we can actually merge these pull requests. And what's pretty cool, actually, what is happening in the background? Jenkins X not only allows us to do continuous delivery, so basically every commit is going to be built and deployed to staging, but also basically it creates some kind of dynamic environment for pull requests. Let's suppose we are working in the front end. So we have some kind of business analyst which wants to check really your APIs or your user interface. So basically you can just spin up basically a Docker container in Kubernetes, review that, and just shut it down dynamically. So I find it also pretty cool because it speeds up the review process for pull requests. So now, as you can see, it's making a preview environment. What does it mean? If we go back to Kubernetes now, probably not in this namespace. I should just remove the label. Here we can see we have the Javantura rocks preview environment. So here we could actually review our code. So for example, normally we also generate a domain name through a special controller in Kubernetes. And we can actually click here and see if our changes are properly made. But it's pretty tedious, so I don't want to do that. I can even click now if I can find the right window. Let's go here. So Jenkins X even comments automatically on pull requests. So here you can see a comment made automatically by Jenkins X. So I can click here and review the code. So here, this is what is running in the preview environment. And you can see that from the URL. Probably it's a little bit small, but you get the idea. OK. So once we merge the pull request, of course, this is going to trigger again the pipeline and deploy that on staging. If we want to deploy to production, you can use the JX promote command. Probably, I don't think we'll have time to do that today, but you can try that at home. And actually, my personal preference is not using this command, because using JX promote, it will actually trigger a pull request on the production, for example, environment without allowing you don't have enough time to review the code. So I prefer actually using the manual process of triggering a pull request. So let's suppose we want to actually deploy this application to production. What would we do? If we check on my GitHub again, so I'll try to find the repository. Sorry, so it's not this one. So I have the production environment. So what you will do is just adapt this file, the requirements YAML file. You say, OK, along with these two applications, I want also my application. You will trigger, basically, you will open a pull request after the reviewer said, yeah, it's OK, we can deploy application version 002 to production. This pull request is basically approved, and that's it. There are a lot of features, and I really encourage you to explore them. So even, for example, you can create add-ons for other functionality. So you can, for example, perform security check on Docker images. You can use Prow for handling webhooks on GitHub. You can install Istio, which has been presented, for example, before. You can even you can perform also dynamic security checks additionally to anchor to the Docker container. So it's actually, in my opinion, really speeds up the process of creating microservices. So you can actually use Kubernetes. You can use the cloud without really, at the really beginning, without studying and without the need to understand everything. So it was pretty short, unfortunately. So I will try to switch back to the slides. So we have seen Jenkins. I love Jenkins X. I'm personally also a minor committer and contributor. And even though I love it, I say this is no silver bullet. Why? Because the biggest challenges I see actually in all projects are not technical challenges, but are human challenges. So it's difficult to adapt the culture of the people. It's difficult to communicate. So along with Jenkins X, so encouraging you to try it, I also, and as a take-home message, I say never stop learning, never stop communicating. Thank you. I don't know if there is time left for questions. Yeah. The question was, so Jenkins X is open source. Yes, it's open source, and the business model is based on paid features, like paid add-ons. So especially now I showed the static Jenkins master solution, but you can even plug in knative builds. So you can even use serverless builds. And in that case, it's kind of difficult to visualize pipelines because you have functions which are basically building your code and they just disappear. So one add-on, for example, is the CloudBees core for Kubernetes add-ons. You can visualize also this stuff. And I mean, you could even create your own add-on and sell it on the CloudBees market. So that's pretty cool. Other questions? then yeah, thank you. One thing more, so I still have, since our IT culture is a culture based on stickers, I have a few stickers left. So if you want them, I will just have it on my desk. Thank you.